All right, so I thought I'd follow up the previous video that I just had with one on scrying and what it's about. So the whole idea of scrying is that you're taking a look at something as a focus and you're allowing yourself and your consciousness to see whatever comes through. So altered states of consciousness, that's kind of the buzzword since, let's say, the 80s, 90s, 70s, who knows, right? Definitely since the 60s. But at any rate, as this catch-all term to include both psychedelics or hypnosis or even like just falling asleep, it's a good one. So that's the sort of thing that you would enter into if you're doing scrying. So the usual thing that you'll see is somebody using, like, let's say a black mirror, captomancy, something like that. Captromancy, I think that's it. I think I finally got it. Captromancy, where it basically means mirror kind of magic sort of thing. So the idea there is that, you'd be like looking into this black obsidian mirror. That's sort of the stereotype. And by the way, John Dee and Edward Kelly did have an obsidian. John Dee did have an obsidian mirror, but Edward Kelly didn't use it. He used something else, which I'll get into in a second. But a lot of things that people will do is they'll have very low light on and maybe like some candles going so that there's like this flickering sensation of light coming into your eyes, and it sort of gets you in like a mood, like if old school people would like stare into a fire, and have their consciousness kind of like get a little different, and so that they could have visions and stuff like that. So that's one version of that. Another one would be, let's say, gazing into a crystal. So there's this stereotype of gazing into a crystal ball. If you've ever seen, like a fortune teller or even like, The Wizard of Oz has a scene like this, where the guy, I forget his actual title. He played so many characters. The guy who ultimately plays the wizard when Dorothy's in Oz. But, gazing into this, in the scene beforehand where you're gazing into this crystal ball and you're seeing things, that sort of thing. So that's basically what scrying is. You're having a vision. So let me just very quickly speak about what those two things are. So in terms of like what you're going to do practically, you're going to get into an altered state of consciousness, whatever that is, and then you're going to use something as a focus. So that could be either like a mirror, it could be like a bowl of water, that same thing where you're getting the light reflecting back, or it could be like a crystal. And that the crystal is actually what Edward Kelly and John Dee used. It was known as the shoe stone or a show stone. It's a stone that shows you things. So I recall reading where somebody went to the British Museum, and in that section, I guess, where Edward Kelly and John Dee were, apparently like the actual shoe stone came out to the Enochian practitioner, and he could, they could see it, literally like see Prague, the city of Prague, where Dee and Kelly were. So like clearly there was some juice to it, right? And there was something special and unique about that. So Edward Kelly would always like keep going back to it. They speak about that stone in I want to say John Dee's Heptarchia Mystica, where they say it was hidden in the depth of the Roman procession. And I'm like, was this in a church? Was this in like some kind of Catholic church? I mean, I don't know, right? But that's one thing I've thought about is, okay, maybe Edward Kelly spoke of the provenance of it, and that was, so I don't know where it came from, but at any rate, he would use that same thing he used whatever technique he used to like look into the crystal and see his visions. Recently, if you look at some of Frater RC's or Frater RC's videos, I want to say, I can't remember the author's name, but it was a good discussion of what it was that he may have been taking, or people in general might have been taking specific substances, if you know what I mean. And it wasn't clear, but because I'm not remembering, it wasn't exactly clear, but there was a very strong hypothesis that, okay, there was something going on there. So I do recommend Magick Without Fears, that podcast. and just delving in that way. Okay, so you do whatever you need to do to get in the altered state, whether substances or hypnosis or whatever. And usually what I find is that just activating the furniture, that is enough for me. Or sometimes I'll need to repeat the call, the Enochian call, in order to have that vision come about. But that's enough. But that's for me because I've been doing this a while. So you get that, and then the deal is that you're going to stare at whatever object of focus that is. So again, mirror, crystal, shoe stone, maybe a bowl of water, and people who do they usually do it in lower lighting, just because you don't want the serotonin that gets spiked when you have a lot of light shining in you. That's not something to be overlooked. So what do I do? Well, apparently John Dee told the angels that he was having a hard time actually doing the scrying, and that's why he was unsuccessful. So instead they said, he did say that he has a much easier time seeing things if he just closes his eyes, and the angels say that's even better. So he closed that. So he closed his eyes. So you could close your eyes and do that. I think he still employed Kelly afterward. So, all right. So you do all of the things. And by the way, John Dee and Edward Kelly, they preceded a lot of this with prayer. And I do recommend prayer as another good focus for your mind beforehand. So what do I do when I do this? I used to try to do a mirror. Then I used to try to, when I heard though that John Dee was seeing this stuff better with his eyes closed, I say, let me close my eyes. And that really has worked for me. So then getting into why would any of these things work? Well, the common factor I noticed with all of these is a difference in light. So John Dee, one of the things that he was kind of on board with, I think it was Bacon that he was referring to, but regardless, the idea is that you have both the visible light, that you can obviously use to see me, or you had invisible light, which, nowadays it's kind of interesting that theory is actually like literally true. Like there's light that we cannot see in the form of like infrared light or UV light or X-rays or whatever, right? What? So it's literally true in one sense. Another sense is that, more of a metaphorical thing, like our eyes can see without, see additional things. So, okay, so for me, it's just like, that's the main denominator across those different mediums. Mirror and crystal, or bowl of water that is also mirror, or your eyes. What do all those things have in common? They both are reflecting or refracting light, right? So literally your eyeball, it refracts the light, and it bends it so that it can focus well. And you can make the same argument that, okay, a mirror reflects the light, and so but it's that interaction between actual light and whatever it is that needs to be seen. So once you do that, then you go ahead and have whatever experience that is. Now, there's some auditory stuff. So when I'm scrying, the way it goes for me is I will definitely see things, and I will sometimes hear things like specific messages. Never to the same level as like, you can hear me talking right now, but I will be told certain things. But other times I'm just like given the meaning. And so when you see me like during these live scryings, what I'm doing is I'm like, okay, here's what I'm seeing, and the angels are saying this, or they're giving me a sense of this. So those three things, that clairsentience, clairaudience to a degree, a little bit less. I still get that when I'm vibrating holy words, all of that, as well as clairvoyance. All of those will happen. So, but that's just me, and I've been practicing, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. The other thing that I'm very fortunate to be able to do is sort of drive and navigate at the same time. Like the way that Dee and Kelly did it, because Kelly was a good visionary and Dee was a good driver, they were able to like get a lot of stuff done and have that good division of labor. It's a little more difficult because Dee was also like taking notes, but yeah, I'm very fortunate that I'm able to kind of do both at once. The only downside is that you know, I couldn't take notes and keep my eyes closed to have the vision and all of that. That'd be way too much. So what I do is I'll just audio record what I'm saying, or as you've seen in some of these, I'll video record it. So that's my way of taking notes for posterity. So yeah, so what are my recommendations? I think it was Donald Tyson who had a decent book on scrying and how to scry. Really, my recommendation is, before you try any of that, is to just meditate. And if you see things come up during your meditation, that's a good indication that you might be just okay without using a scrying surface or a ball or a crystal or anything like that. So in that case, just do whatever it is you need to do in terms of like activating furniture and making the calls. And when I say activating the furniture, I'm like literally like naming the name of the letter as I go around the table, doing the same thing, naming the angels as I'm doing the sigillum, that, etc. But I do recommend, if you're able to meditate, then see what happens after you made the call and you're just like kind of quiet there in that space. If not, go ahead and get an obsidian mirror. Try to get a used one if you can. But if you can get a new one, that's fine too. The main concern that I have about, you know, getting crystals and getting mirrors and stuff like that is that there is an environmental impact. And so trying to balance what it is that we need spiritually versus, you know, what's already out there, that's a real concern, and it should be, right? We should be doing all of this stuff ethically and responsibly. So what I would recommend is, you know, trying to find, and by the way, if you're going to use a crystal to like do that, it would probably need to be, you need to see if it would work anyway. So, you know, ideally you would like, you know, have somebody who you're friends with who already has at least a crystal. So yeah, so just to wrap up, you know, try to meditate, you know, see how well that works for you. That might be enough to just be able to scry with your eyes closed after making the calls and all of that. If not, if you do need that, you know, obviously the cheapest way is to get a bowl of water. You know, you don't need to buy a black mirror, an obsidian mirror. So try that. And then finally, you can also try with a crystal and just see what works for you. I'm the expert on me and my nervous system, and even then, probably not 100%. So you'll be the expert on you and what works for you. Let me see if there's anything else. I think that's about the long and short of it. So just thank you all so much. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Just bear in mind that, okay, yeah, I should mention this. Drugs, since I mentioned that offhandedly. Look, that's a topic for, you know, adults to really think about and really process for themselves. Is this something I want to engage with? And I have not ever mixed drugs and magic, just because, you know, I mean, it's hard enough when you're on the substance to be able to really trust the insight that you're getting. I mean, you can, let me just pause that. I mean, you can get something during the integration phase, but I do know of at least a couple people who have tried who do sort of mix that up. In my case, I would say if that's something you're going to do, I would say start with a lower dose. Dosage and setting, right? But generally speaking, I think the thing is you're adding in an unpredictable element to magic, and you're also adding in energy of a different valence, and so maybe it's not the best thing to do. So really proceed with a lot of caution along those lines. I cannot recommend it, but that doesn't mean that, You know, I can say I've had a lot of experience with it, but I also know that I'm very sensitive. And with the bipolar, that's something to be aware of and to be mature about. So, okay. So I think that's about it. And yeah, I mean, generally speaking, whatever messages you're getting from the angels, you know, if you did engage with that practice, take some time to integrate it and run it by your friends, because your friends will tell you whether or not something, you know, the friends you trust, the friends who might be okay with magic, but they'll tell you if, ask them directly if you think you'd be blowing your life up if you followed this amazing, huge thing. And if they say yes, ask yourself, is that really what you want? Because really, ultimately, we're just, yeah, anyway, that's a whole other thing. Engage in the conversations. I'll just leave it at that. All right, so that's it for Scrying. Love you all. I probably won't be posting as much in the immediate future, but if you do have questions, feel free to reach out either here or through my blog enochian.today, and I will see you later. Bye.